Great. Thank you so much. And really, it's truly my honor to be part of this amazing event and really appreciate the very kind introduction. Much of the theme of my talk is going to follow on very much from Daryl about, creating investment markets that are more long-term, focusing on all stakeholders, and really, as we move out of this COVID situation, to be able to build back better. This is really the focus of my book called Better Business, as was introduced. It was written before COVID, but I think it's even more applicable afterwards. This idea of stakeholders, focusing on stakeholders is something that, before COVID had such tremendous groundswell of support, a lot of resonance. People are familiar probably with the Business Roundtable, announcement to focus on the purpose of companies, not just about shareholders and short term, but about all stakeholders, employees, communities, consumers. It seems like a lifetime ago, but even in January of this year, the World Economic Forum, not that long ago, actually was focused on stakeholder capitalism, and investors like Larry Fink, chair, founder of BlackRock, I think the largest private investor in the world, writing letters about companies needing purpose, needing to focus on sustainability. And these are all, I think, wonderful indicators of how leaders in business and investors are taking this very seriously. But it's a lot of talk. And I think that, I think talk is good as a first step, but I think that really to move beyond talk, we need to focus on action. And I think that there's been a lot of early stage action through COVID. There's been some studies of the BRT companies, Business Roundtable companies, whether they are actually, implementing stakeholder capitalism or not. Some indications maybe they are, some indications maybe they aren't. But I think that it's still early to tell. And I think that what the message of the book is that being stakeholder driven is sort of easier said than done. And while intentions are great, what we need are tools and processes to help actually make that happen. It's so easy to sort of slip back into the regular sort of old way of doing things. Greenwashing, where companies are sort of communicating, they're doing wonderful things in the environment, but actually are not internally, is rampant. I think that many people in the world do not trust large companies. Through COVID and the Business Roundtable, case is an example. I feel bad for Marriott. It frequently gets sort of called out for this. Signed on to the Business Roundtable statement. COVID hits, they furlough 85% of their employees, which is understandable actually, because when businesses hit, if their business goes down 95%, of course, they can't necessarily be expected to keep all those employees on. But they ended up, at the same time paying out almost $200 million in dividends, putting in for a raise for their CEO. And so this is where I see things sort of out of balance between different stakeholders, and sort of the short-termism around just paying the shareholders really needs to change. So the book that I wrote, focuses very much on the different tools and processes, particularly around impact assessment and governance, to help companies align around stakeholder management. So many examples throughout the book on B corporations. I highlight that work because this is a set of companies that has really sort of taken that to the next level. But I want to say that the message of the book is not that all companies should be B Corps. There are 3,500 B Corps in the world. And B Corp is a company that's certified for its social and environmental performance. Very rigorous certification, well-known companies, Patagonia, Ben & Jerry's, in Spain, one of the, Danone actually, Danone Spain was the first B Corp in Danone's portfolio, which I think is very nice given that Danone was founded actually in Barcelona, and Danone is an overall company, $30 billion company, has been sort of committed to becoming a B Corp by 2025. But the message of the book is that I think that it's wonderful to celebrate those companies, but not that all companies should be B Corps, but that there's tools and processes that have been developed that all companies can actually use, learn from, to become more stakeholder driven. So I'm going to talk about sort of 4 different pillars in some ways by which companies can implement some of these tools. So one is tracking, measuring, and being transparent. This is something that, I was sort of surprised at the Business Roundtable statement. Again, sort of, I really appreciate them putting attention on this, but they didn't really say anything about tracking, measurement, and how to do this. Larry Fink, I think, does a nice job of this, highlights the SASB, Sustainable Accounting Standards Board tools. That's an important set of tools where companies can actually report, measure, and report on their sustainability objectives and achievements. Global Reporting Initiative is another one. These are important because they bring companies to public scrutiny, but also identify areas of improvement for them. This is why I actually titled the book Better Business, because so many of the companies that I talked to said, they got into this idea of becoming a B Corp because they wanted to improve their social and environmental management and performance. But really, at the end of it, they were a better business because they were able to benchmark with other companies' management processes. And really, these ESG frameworks are essentially management tools for long-term risk management and sustainability. So the B impact assessment, for instance, there may only be 3,500 B Corps, but over 100,000 companies actually use this to manage their ESG processes. For instance, the BDC, Business Development Bank of Canada, uses it to screen its screen its lendees. So if you a small business apply for a loan, you go through a sort of a version of the B impact assessment to sort of understand the strength of your management, the strength of your sustainability. Bank of Colombia in South America does the same thing. VC firms have embraced this. Mainstream VC firms from Kleiner Perkins, Sequoia, Google Ventures, all actually invested in B Corps. One story I just came across, interviewed the founder, CEO of a VC firm called Fifth Wall. This is a mainstream VC firm in the real estate space and does some investment in sort of new retail. They invested in 2 B Corps, Allbirds and Cotopaxi. And the founder said to me, we learned about this idea of the certified social and environmental companies through our investees. We realized this is what we believe in too. So here, mainstream VC firm actually becomes a B Corp itself. And there's a few other examples of that. I think that, as these venture capital companies are becoming involved in this, it says sort of, number of years down the line, 3 to 5 years down the line, I think there's going to be a tremendous amount of attention in the public markets of these firms, because obviously these investors are going to want an exit at some point. And I think this is something that has really started to get traction already. So just in the last number of months, 3 B Corps went public, an online insurer, a sort of sustainable farming and egg company, and a vertical farm company. What I think is so this sort of is a new trend. What is even a bigger deal, I think, is that 3 companies during this time period have also changed their articles of incorporation to embed stakeholder principles in the legal foundation of the company, Danone being one of them, Amalgamated Bank in the US being another one, Danone obviously based in Paris. In these companies, they had shareholder votes to say, okay, we want to actually, in the articles of incorporation of our company, say we are, our purpose is beyond just shareholders. 99% passed. Viva Systems, which is a cloud computing company, recently filed with the SEC to change its incorporation to a benefit corporation, which I'll say a little bit about in a second. So again, this is going to be scrutiny of existing shareholders and having a vote. So, whereas it's great that companies went public, the people that invest in those companies know that what these companies are. I think that the fact that we're now having shareholder votes around purpose and purpose governance is tremendously, it's a turning point, I think, really in the support of these type of companies in the markets. So the second pillar I say a little bit about is this governance aspect I just mentioned. So this idea of having the purpose, material positive impact on society and the environment, in addition to profits being baked into the DNA of the company. There's new types of companies from social purpose corporations. Benefit corporations is the model that has become most popular. So this is like a C corporation or S corporation or LLC. You have a benefit corporation where the company has sort of an articulated purpose in sort of the DNA of the company, so to speak. These companies also must be accountable. They have a fiduciary duty to these additional stakeholders. And I think tremendously important is be transparent. Again, this is, Louis Brandeis, the Supreme Court Justice, sunlight is the best disinfectant. So I should also note that while this idea started in the US, it's actually taken off outside the US even more. So the benefit corporation idea is passed in a number of different US states, most important being Delaware, which is sort of the home of US corporate law, but also, passed in Italy, Colombia, Ecuador, Canadian province of British Columbia. Other countries are also, in the process of adopting this benefit corporation form. So that's, I think, very important. I think also the idea of B corporations is now over 50% of them are outside the US. And my estimation is that actually the center of gravity of this movement is in the process of shifting to Europe and South America. So while it started as a US phenomena, I think that because the sort of general economic systems in Europe and South America are a bit more sort of stakeholder driven, not as sort of Wall Street short-term driven, that actually will be where the center of gravity of this movement turns. Regarding that, I want to say sort of a third pillar is working together. So, companies can do this on their own, but actually through collective action and through collective effort, this really takes on a power, beyond just one company. So this idea of sort of the center of gravity shifting to Europe and South America, why I say that is because, also this summer, a new sort of network and organization around these sort of social purpose B Corps as large companies has been developed. And 6 companies have signed on to this. Danone, as I mentioned, Natura, which is a Brazilian cosmetics company, well known for its longstanding social and environmental impact. Recently, in the last few years, acquired The Body Shop and Avon, so very big $10 billion company now, as well as 2 other companies from Brazil, a steelmaker and a retailer, and 2 companies from Europe, 2 other companies from Europe, a fragrance and flavor company, and also a vegetable producer. They all have joined this program to actually work together to implement these stakeholder management tools and processes originated in the B Corp movement. And I think there'll be tremendous learning among these companies, and then also provide frameworks for other larger companies to implement this as well. So additionally, around this working together point, I think another key set of priorities is the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And, the UN Sustainable Development Goals are these sort of really, as we all know, incredibly important priorities for the world to accomplish or to address in meaningful ways by 2030. The thing is, these are actually not operationalized tremendously well for business. They're societal level goals. Obviously, business, as was mentioned, in the earlier presentation, but business really is bigger than many countries, largest businesses in the world. And so one of the things that B Lab, the organization behind B corporations, has done is worked with the UN to actually synchronize a measurement tool with the SDGs so that companies can see how their businesses line up with different SDGs. So that's another way to sort of really work together and collectively. And finally, the 5th pillar, which I'm going to close on, that's sort of the shortest in some ways, is all of us, as consumers. The SDG 12 is the idea of responsible consumption. And I'm sure there's business leaders on the line thinking about how through their products and services, they can help their consumers, understand why responsible consumption is important. But all of us, not just as the businesses we lead, but also as individuals, we need to think about consciously and redirect our own spending. I know myself, I try very hard to do this, but I know I can do better. And so sort of as a last word, just want all of you to take from this presentation every day as you go through buying things, services, products, how can your little decisions play a greater role in the development of a sustainable economy? So thank you very much.